Emma looked disapprovingly at the driver who was taking a detour despite knowing she was running late. This guy seemed totally unflappable. She had told him to drive faster, but he was still crawling along. "I'm sorry, driver, but can't you go a little bit faster?" she pleaded. "Ma'am, why are you so nervous? Make no mistake, we'll be there on time," he responded coolly. There was no arguing with the man. Emma leaned back in her seat and stared out the window at the nighttime city. How long had she been doing this? It had been almost a year. Unbelievable. If someone had told her, she wouldn't have believed it. On the other hand, it was quite worrying. Her mother-in-law had been bedridden for a year without any improvement. Emma thought that she would still keep making these trips if it would help. Her mother-in-law was pretty mean, but there was no real malice in her. In any case, Emma didn't wish her any harm. Yes, her mother-in-law had a difficult personality. Emma had known this since she was just a fiancée. It was raining and she and Alex had run into his apartment to warm up. "Why do you breeze about like a dragonfly, such a flighty girl? Why don't you help your mother or father at home instead of flaunting yourself in front of Alex? Mark my words, she'll be just as flighty in marriage," her mother-in-law had said. Alex always defended Emma against his mother, not allowing her to attack his fiancée. But once Emma became his wife, he seemed to quiet down. Even though her mother-in-law's predictions didn't come true, she was still dissatisfied with her daughter-in-law for no apparent reason. During the first year of their marriage, she visited the young family daily for inspections, running her thin finger over tables, shelves, and the TV, searching for dust. She rummaged through cabinets and drawers, ensuring that everything was in order. Although she never raised her voice, she always looked down on Emma as if she were a bug at her feet, living only by her mercy. At first, this irritated and even scared Emma, but eventually, she got used to it, realizing her mother-in-law was just killing time. She was bored. To be honest, Emma found satisfaction in seeing her mother-in-law's puzzled face when there was nothing to disapprove of, which was almost always the case. Emma had become an excellent homemaker. Her mother had taught her to keep things orderly from a young age. Emma's father was in the military and also instilled discipline and cleanliness in her. She was grateful to her parents for such an upbringing. As a child, Emma protested against the Iron Order and felt wronged by her parents, but now, as an adult, she realized this upbringing had served her well. Later, Emma even began to look forward to her mother-in-law's visits. Her husband had started working as a long-haul truck driver. Sometimes he wouldn't be home for a month. It was lonely and dreary for Emma to be alone in the apartment. During the week, work kept her distracted, but on weekends, she felt very lonely and depressed. However, when her mother-in-law came over, grumbling, it was more entertaining than being alone. Her mother-in-law would grumble while Emma told her stories about work, her husband, and her future plans. The first time Alex saw this scene, he nearly died laughing. "Emma, who taught you to fold your clothes like this? They'll get wrinkled," her mother-in-law grumbled from within the closet. "You know, Mom, speaking of clothes, you should get a new robe. Don't you think I want one too? It's nice to dress well, but at home, you want to feel comfortable, especially in the summer," Emma said. "Why did you fold the linens like that? How will you make the bed with such sheets?" her mother-in-law continued. "Yeah, and I want soft slippers. I saw some recently, and they're not expensive. Should I buy you a pair?" "Go ahead," her mother-in-law mumbled and continued her inspection, scanning the apartment for something to disapprove of. Maybe that's why Alex stopped defending his wife from his mother, thinking that everything was fine as it was. He once told Emma that if she wanted, he could forbid his mother from visiting. But Emma gave him a withering look and even waved her hands. "Don't you dare," she said. And Alex didn't interfere anymore, deciding they could handle it themselves. A couple of years later, Alex's mother suddenly fell ill. At first, Emma didn't even notice that her mother-in-law had disappeared. It was the end of the year, and Emma was swamped at work, too busy to count the days. On the weekend, she waited for the usual knock on the door. She even thought it was high time to give her mother-in-law a key to the apartment, but Emma never heard that knock. Her mother-in-law didn't answer the phone either. Her husband was on the road, and she didn't want to worry him, so Emma packed up and went to her mother-in-law's place an hour away by train. Emma knocked on the door for a long time before trying the handle to discover that the door wasn't locked. From the corridor, she heard a racking cough and rushed to the bedroom. Her mother-in-law looked nothing like herself. Her eyes were feverishly bright, and her face was pale except for flushed cheeks. She was bundled up in 3 blankets, shivering with each cough. "Why didn't you call?" Emma scolded her immediately. Emma sprang into action, brewing tea, making broth, and calling a doctor for a home visit. They suggested hospitalization, but her mother-in-law flatly refused. "All right, let her stay at home. I'll take care of her," Emma decided. Emma wasn't lying. Every day after work, while the fever persisted, she would visit her mother-in-law. When her condition improved a bit, she visited on Wednesdays and weekends. The illness seemed to have passed, but her mother-in-law remained weak. She rarely got up, walked slowly along the wall, and ate very little, making Emma worry that things might worsen. She tried to talk to her husband about it, but he just brushed it off. "Well, what do you expect? Age takes its toll, and it was a long illness. She needs time to recover." "What do you mean, age? What are you talking about? Your mother is still young. You talk as if she's ancient." "Don't you care at all?" Emma asked, frustrated. "Why should I worry when she has such great care? I'm even jealous she sees you more often than I do," her husband said, sounding a little bit hurt. "I'm sorry. I know that, but I can't just abandon her. How could she be alone? Then why don't we hire a caregiver?" "No, I don't even want to think about that. Hiring a stranger when her children are alive and well, who knows how she'd be treated." Emma did her best to take care of her mother-in-law. She cooked, cleaned, though there wasn't much to clean since her mother-in-law lived alone, did laundry, well, loaded the washing machine, and chatted with her mother-in-law. These conversations brought joy to both of them. During those moments, her mother-in-law seemed to even look younger. She would tell Emma about her youth, her first love, her husband, her parents, and even about her own mother-in-law. "I didn't like her. Oh, what a difficult woman she was. She always complained to my husband about me. If I did something right, it went unacknowledged, but when I did something wrong, she was just vicious. She drove me so crazy that I once ran away to my parents' house just to get a break from her attacks," her mother-in-law reminisced. Emma would smirk, remembering her mother-in-law's daily inspections, but keep silent. If she assumed these stories were half true, she felt she had it easy. Her mother-in-law went on to talk about Alex's birth, his growing up, the times back then, and how they compared to now. They talked a lot. In the evenings, Emma would gather her things and rush to catch the last suburban train back to her husband, who had returned from his trip and was waiting for her. But today, she didn't make it. The slowpoke of a driver had circled around so long looking for a parking spot that Emma realized she would have to spend the night at her mother-in-law's. As she got out of the car, she reluctantly handed the driver a large bill, and that jerk even charged her the night rate. Tired, Emma climbed the steps and quietly opened the door. As soon as she entered, she froze, listening to her mother-in-law's unusually loud voice echoing through the apartment. Yes, Linda, she's gone now. The last train's left. What about Emma? Emma's great. I feel a bit guilty lying to her. Oh, Linda, don't lecture me about conscience. I know it well enough without you. But I can't tell her the truth. Why, you don't know? Why didn't you once pretend to be sick to get your son-in-law to fix your washing machine? Exactly. I've gotten used to having Emma around, at least I can talk to her. My son doesn't pay much attention to me, you know that. And I got lucky to have such a daughter-in-law. She's a gem. I'm not even joking. With her, my life isn't so burdensome. Otherwise, it's just me, and I can't take it anymore. So I can't and won't admit the truth now. If I do, I'll be alone, and I can't allow that to happen. Emma nearly slid down the wall from the shock of such revelations. So her mother-in-law was as healthy as anyone and was just pretending. Unbelievable. What should she do now? Deciding that she could always expose the deceitful woman later, Emma stepped back into the corridor, quietly closed the door, knocked, and then, after waiting a minute, entered again. Mom, are you still up? Can you believe it? The driver took so long that I missed the last train. Can I stay here tonight? Emma called from the corridor, giving her mother-in-law enough time to get back into bed and back into character. Oh, Emma, of course, stay. It goes without saying. Did you call Alex? Yes, I called and warned him. I'll leave early in the morning. Make yourself at home, her mother-in-law replied. Her mother-in-law had long since fallen asleep, but Emma couldn't stop tossing and turning, replaying the conversation she'd overheard. Initially, she felt a surge of anger over the deception, but then she imagined her own children someday forgetting about her, and her heart ached for her mother-in-law living alone, far away and unable to visit often. She must be so lonely. Alex, we need to bring your mom to live with us immediately, Emma declared the next morning, recounting what she had heard the previous night. I suspected something like that. She couldn't be sick for so long without a reason. But where would we put her? We need more space ourselves, and what about when we have kids? Alex asked, concerned. Emma hesitated. We will have kids, Alex, very soon. I forgot to tell you, I'm pregnant. Does Mom know? No, I haven't told her yet. So what do we do about the baby? No, silly, about Mom. I don't know. We need to think it through, Emma said. And they did. They combined their savings, sold their apartment, and bought a spacious, well-built house in the suburbs with 4 rooms, a glassed-in veranda, a garden, and even a vegetable patch. They moved her in and relocated there themselves. When they told her she was going to be a grandmother soon, she was so overjoyed that Emma teared up. Her mother-in-law cried too. She had become quite sentimental lately. Once they had settled into the new place, her mother-in-law approached Emma. Daughter, I have to confess. My conscience is killing me. I wasn't sick back then. It just felt so good to have you visit. But now I'll help with the baby, and I'll sign over the apartment to you. You're not mad at me, are you? Emma set aside the laundry she was about to hang up and hugged her mother-in-law. I'm not mad, Mom. I enjoyed looking after you, and if needed, I'll do it again. We're a family. I'm not mad at all. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Emma, dear, her mother-in-law said. The 2 women stood in the middle of the yard, embracing and smiling at each other. Frozen in the hallway, a man watched the blood drain from my face, thinking how wonderful it was to have peace and harmony in the family, filled my ears. They were vile, manipulative, and I had been a fool to believe their lies. I took a deep breath, composing myself. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing my pain. I calmly took off my shoes and walked toward the living room, making sure to slam the front door shut behind me. "I'm home," I announced, my voice overly cheerful. The conversation in the living room ceased abruptly. They turned to face me, their faces plastered with feigned smiles. "Oh, Noah! Welcome home. We didn't hear you come in." I smiled tightly, my blood running cold. These people, they disgusted me. "Dinner will be ready soon," I said, heading towards the kitchen. The moment I was out of sight, I let out a shaky breath, my body trembling with suppressed rage. They had used me, tricked me into becoming their personal ATM. I had been so focused on making Matthew happy that I hadn't seen the truth. I spent the rest of the evening pretending everything was fine, but my mind raced, plotting my revenge. They wanted to play games fine. Two can play at that game. From that day forward, I began to strategize. I pretended to be happy, continuing to make payments towards their debt, all the while secretly preparing for my exit. I consulted with a lawyer, transferred all my savings into a new account, and started documenting their every move. 3 months later, I decided it was time. "Matthew, we need to talk," I said one evening, my voice carefully neutral. He looked up from his phone, a bored expression on his face. "What is it now, Noah?" "I've paid off your parents' debt." He blinked, confused. "What already? But that was supposed to take years." I smiled coldly. "I told you I had savings. I didn't want to pay it all off at once, but I realized it would be better to just get it over with. I transferred the last payment today. It's done." I pulled out my bank book and tossed it on the coffee table in front of him. His eyes widened as he saw the final balance. He tried to contain his excitement, but I could see the greed gleaming in his eyes. "Wow, Noah, thank you. My parents are going to be so happy. You're the best." His words, once music to my ears, now rang hollow. I knew it was all an act. He didn't care about me, only about what I could do for him. He called his parents, who rushed over immediately, showering me with phony praise and gratitude. "You're an angel, Noah," his mother cried, embracing me in a tight hug. I patted her back awkwardly, fighting the urge to push her away. I couldn't wait to wash off the stench of their deceit. A few days later, Matthew finally made his move. He sat me down, his expression serious. "Noah," he began, his voice somber. "I'm sorry, but we need to talk." "Here it comes," I thought. "I'm leaving you." I feigned shock. "Why? I have someone else. I'm moving in with her. I want a divorce." His words were like a punch to the gut, even though I knew they were coming. I looked at him, at the man I thought I loved, and felt nothing but disgust. "You're despicable," I spat. Just then, as if on cue, the front door swung open, and my in-laws strolled in. They must have been listening at the door. "Well, did you finally tell her, Matthew?" his mother asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Yes, mother, I told her. She'll be moving out, of course." They both looked at me expectantly. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, the moment they could finally discard me, now that they had bled me dry. "Actually," I began, a steely glint in my eyes, "about that." I stood up, my voice calm and steady. "You seem to have forgotten one very important detail. This house, it's mine. Their jaws dropped. "What are you talking about?" Matthew sputtered. "You're being ridiculous. I made sure to put the house in my name when we renovated. So, you see, I get to decide who stays and who goes." You can't do this!" his mother shrieked. I smiled coldly. "Oh, but I can. And I am. Get out." The look on their faces was priceless. They had underestimated me, mistaken my kindness for weakness. But you paid off our debts. We have nowhere to go," his father pleaded, his voice cracking. I shrugged, unmoved by his crocodile tears. "That's not my problem. You used me, lied to me, and treated me like an ATM. Now, it's time to face the consequences of your actions." They left, defeated and seething with rage. I watched them go, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. The divorce was messy, but I came out on top. I sold the house, making a tidy profit, and Matthew ended up with nothing. He had also conveniently forgotten to mention his new girlfriend to his lawyer, who was equally surprised to learn about her. Let's just say she didn't stick around once she realized Matthew was broke and homeless. As for my former in-laws, they were forced to move into a tiny, run-down apartment. Their dreams of easy money had backfired spectacularly. They had lost their home, their dignity, and their son, all because of their greed and deception. I was free. The experience had been painful, a harsh lesson in trust and betrayal. But it was also liberating. I had learned to stand up for myself, to protect my heart and my finances. I am rebuilding my life now, stronger and wiser than before. I am learning to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of love. But this time, I will be cautious. I will choose wisely. And I will never, ever let anyone take advantage of me again.